Okay, for everyone that doesn't know me for sure, my name is Felipe. I work for ABN today. I'm a iOS developer there. We work for the people that doesn't know. We are many things that are like there, so we are not just one team that does this. So I'm part of one of those teams. So what I want to talk with you today is about more or less about Swinject itself. Is a framework that we use to handle dependency injection. And of course, for this, I'm gonna talk a little bit about dependency injection, but it will be just a small introduction to make sure that we are aligned and that we understand what the tool is about. Yes, I had to do this. I know that probably many of you already know or do this on a daily basis and so on, but it's always good to clarify. So what is dependency injection? Besides what I see in many blogs and so on, I try to make this as simple as possible. Basically, what I call this dependency injection is like a good pattern that makes your code better. I will try to make it as simple as possible. In a way, most of the time what I see people doing, actually they are doing dependency injection, they just don't know the name in dependency injection. And we have basically 3 forms of doing dependency injection that I will just show like this. So then I'd say we have 3 main ways that we can do dependency injection. And we can do by construction injection that most of the people say that this should be the desirable way. But as everyone here most probably know, we work in an iOS environment and we know that have some scenarios that we cannot properly handle this. Actually, this is a good thing that we know because the tool is going to help us handle this kind of stuff. For those scenarios that we, in iOS, unfortunately, we cannot handle our dependency properly, we can have it this way that's called a property injection. Nothing more than like you have a variable that you're going to set there or dependency. After all, then you're going to know how you're going to do this. And at the end, the method injection. So basically, we have a method that we're going to set up our dependencies right there. So, but seeing this way, what we are actually doing in a short words is like I have my class, and I have some things that I want to use from my class or inside my class and so on, but it's not responsibility of my class. So they should not be created or be added and instantiated in a way inside my class because that's not the purpose. And that's what I try to show using that tool, all that I can do this way. The way that I see this basically is all about the future of your codes. And why it's about the future of your codes? Because this in the long term, even maybe in a short term, you dictated how simple and easy it is to maintain your code and not even tell about the testing parts that we're going to tell a little bit more, but definitely this is going to take you to the path that you're going to be easier to refactor or do anything that you need because usually the code evolves, or you're going to make your life harder in order to do this. So basically, when we have we are seeing our code, we have some kind of stuff, sometimes some class like this, and not the desired when we are talking about the dependency injection, is basically do something like this. I'm doing the same thing, it's the same purpose, but I'm just decouple things the way that I want to achieve. So basically my class that before it was doing many things, I just split a little bit, this the best definition, and now I have the simple way and better way that I can do this. But why I came into this Swinject tool, why I'm using this tool actually. The reason that I look for a tool in order to handle this, because today and many times in the past I work on some big projects. And usually big projects, the common problem that you have there, like many people work in projects is old, many people with different code style and so on. When you come the day that you go there and say, okay, now I need to do some stuff. And you start to find that things a little bit harder to understand. And it's not different than the project that I am. It's a good project at least, but we need to evolve. It's a project that evolves daily basis. We need to make things better all the time. And in order to do this, handle my dependencies is basically the most important thing that I should handle in my project. It's difficult when you don't have a tool because you don't have a common pattern to handle that thing. So you have new people coming that they know how to program and they are good programmers, but you don't have a common layer of communication. So everyone comes with a different definition. I do dependency injection this way, I do in that way and so on. It's kind of hard. So it's good then you added some abstraction layer, some tool that is going to handle this for you. Basically, when we are talking about dependency injection, we are talking about good practices and good patterns that we should achiever should looking for in order to do this. Most of you for sure know the solid concepts that we have, so I only would like to attach to two things that will be my focus based on the presentation and the tool itself. That's the single responsibility and the dependency injection principle. Of course, the dependency injection principle is supposed to be, and the single responsibility. That what actually was the most important thing for me when I choose this tool itself, when I use my projects, because the way that I see is not for small or big projects. I would say that's for all the projects, because this is going to help you in the future when you need to improve your code, or at least sometimes in the beginning you don't know where your code is going. So it's good when you have something that helps you in doing this kind of stuff. The architecture change that we're going to do for this actually is pretty simple. The concept behind this tool is not that difficult in order to understand. The first thing that we have, basically need to understand the idea of a container. The container, basically what I'm doing, I create a box, and I say, hey, everything that's about the dependency, for doesn't matter who, view controllers, objects, and so on, I'm going to put inside a box. And this tool itself, the Swinject, they call a container. So everything that I call dependency, basically everything in my project can be a dependency, I'm going to put inside a container. That's the basic concept of this tool. And the second one is about the registration, because if I put something in somewhere, like in a box, I need to have a way to register this thing, and this tool is going to manage in a different way, it's going to bring some possibilities for us. And the second thing that we're going to achieve from this, I need to get this information from there. But the basically two things that we should know in order to start to decouple our projects or start improving is container and registration. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the little bit of the part of the code that I will try to show. Was a little bit difficult in a way to create a project that I could show everything, because the tool itself can do many stuff, but I tried to show the best way that we can do. I created two simple views because the view itself is not the proper objective of the talk itself, but I can manage and use the tool in order to achieve some things, and I'm going to show this. So the basic thing that I still have that class that is in one view controller. This is the way that most of the people do in this way. Like beside the architecture that you should have, VIP, Viper, and so on, can be anything, doesn't matter, but these is usually the things that people does. They create inside your view controller, inside your class, some dependencies. Like this, I abstract in a way that it's my house, and my house has some rooms. And I have like 1 room, 2 rooms, and I have my objects being created here. If I need to maintain this code, it's going to be a little bit harder, because if I do any change inside my object itself, because my object is a little big, I'm going to need to get back to my view controller and start changing this kind of stuff. And here, where's dependency inject actually help us, because I should not know about how to configure my room, because the idea of this view controller basically only show a house. I just have something ready, and I go there and I show a house. Okay, so these are the items that I have in my house. This is the room that I have in my house. So we're going to try to decouple this a little bit and show that, okay, basically I have the same code, but now I have the abstraction layer. That's why I do this. I have this running. Yeah, so going to be like they have what things that I have in my house, my room, that's the things that I have there, and I show the description, that's a helper method. The first thing that I said to this tool is in order that I should create in a container. So let's imagine that all my dependencies go inside this box. In order to have in a container, I have a little bit set up here. I created what I called my house container, and I just called a method that's called a setup container. And so this method, we definitely should use the Swinject itself, and I have a container that we're receiving. One thing to explain about the container, basically is an object that I can put everything that I want inside there. For now, I have one default container that I'm using. And the way that I set up this, the way that I choose, is go to the app delegate. I'm created in this way, basically I'm creating a singleton. Why am I creating this way? It's about the way that you want to set up in your project. Because if you think in your project about flows, so to have different flows, you can have different containers. For me, I have just one basic container that is handle everything. But this is not mandatory. Like the tool itself, I can have multiple containers and different containers. So here I do my properly setup for the first one, and I have my container set up. Remember that when we say that, okay, so when I have my things, this next step after I have the container, I should register things inside of my container. I have a box, I need to put things in that box. And for this, we have this method that's called like registration. And I'm gonna just a little bit here, no, in order to do this for you. I need to register everything that I have in my project. And this is done in a simple way that I have my container, I should register. The way that you can see here, we have many different ways of register. But basically, registration, I'm saying, hey, I want to put something in your container. It's just a type. I'm not instantiating this. I'm not using this. For now, I just saying the type of what I want. It can be anything. So I can have like the type of what I want. And for this, in order to get this back, this object back, they use the pattern called factor. That's nothing more than object that's responsible to create something without actually know about that thing. Other things that we can do with this is have arguments. So here we start seeing some improvement that we can have in order this. Because when I request for an object that I want, maybe sometimes I want to pass some parameters. It can be like 1 parameter, 2 parameters, and so on. And I can do this with the tool. So what I'm starting to create here is more or less like a contract. If I say that I have a type that I register that just doesn't have any argument, okay, every time that I call this, the tool itself is going to assume, hey, you don't have parameters. So it's not going to look for someone that has parameters. But this we can improve in the future. And this is basically what I see. So in order to see this, I improve in my room. Like now, so remember that we saw a room that has so many methods, many variables, and so on. I changed this a little bit. Now I have a concept of a room that's just this. For now, I have the room. I'm inspecting a furniture. And now the dependency start to make a little bit sense, because why am I going to start adding like things inside a container if I can instantiate by myself where I am? But the thing is, I'm handled by dependencies. If I have like, when I request for a room, I'm not expecting to know that a room needs furniture. I should not even know about this because it's not my purpose. When I have a house, I'm going to put a room and everything that goes inside there, I don't need to know. And here actually is where I manage my dependencies that go for this thing. So I declare here and I have my furniture. My furniture, if I want to improve my furniture, I have other things that I can have. For here's like it. Bad. So I'm set up here basically my dependency. If you see when I'm going to use these, you're going to see that I don't know anything about this thing. So I don't need to know because I have a specific place where I handle this kind of stuff. And so that's why I create a new house, because I say that I have a new house that's way better. Basically, this is the same house that I had before, but what I can see here, way less code and way more simple in the way that we are handled. When I requested, but remember that we mentioned about the types of dependency injection, and the view controller has a limitation these days. Unless I use like a nibs that I properly can override the initializer and set up things there, and even create custom initializers from the storyboard. Unfortunately, until at least iOS 13, we don't have a possibility to have anything in a constructor. So the way that I'm going to set up my dependency injection here is going to be by property, because it's the best way that I can do when I instantiate things from my storyboard itself. So I'm just expecting a room, and I don't know anything about my furniture anymore. We start seeing the couple of codes that we are having, and start seeing that's more maintainable in the way that I have. So first thing, I register my room, and I can have many rooms. I'm going to even add more rooms here in a different ways. Another thing that this tool itself can handle is one of the most corner scenarios that we have. Get a little bigger. It's the corner scenarios that we have that is regarding my storyboards. When a storyboard is handled or instantiation, when I just call like the performance, even just doing a seg inside the storyboard, I don't have control of that construction. I cannot do something regarding that instance itself. But one thing that the tool provides for us is, hey, I can tell you at least when I instantiate and create this in memory. It's not show yet, it's not called the methods from the UI kit, view, the load, and so on, but I can guarantee for you that when you present the view, this will be the instance that will be there. And that's why I declare here. So I have inside my container, I have storyboard init complete. I just declare the type. And I do some configurations here. Here again, I'm handling my dependency again. So I don't have anything set up inside my class. So this a little bit improve our code. So any dependency that I have, I'm setting here. So I receive always two things. One is the resolver. The resolver, nothing more, nothing less, it's like a pointer, is a variable inside our framework that basically points to our container. Container is basically an array in a way. If you go to the tool itself, you see that the array is way more complicated, but I have this. Why the reason that I have this? Because like I did here, I'm saying, hey, after my class is instantiated, is created, now I want to fullify my dependencies inside there. I'm doing my properties, so I need to resolve. I go to resolver, that basically is my container, and say, hey, look for new room, because this is the guy that I want to look for. And then what it's gonna do is gonna get looking in my array, my registration, my box. Hey, does someone fit this requirement that I'm asking? Most probably in this and I'm gonna find, and you say, okay, new room self, this is the type. You're gonna call the closure from that type, and I'm gonna start create all the dependencies that I put there, like resolve everything, create everything that I need, because I can do anything that I want. You're gonna return that instance for me. So in this way, I'm gonna set up here my dependency. We can see here already that one thing that we are improving is my view controller doesn't know anything now about my dependency, but beside the view controller, this abstraction can do for any object that we have. So if I need to improve and start to improve, I can do many things that my view controller will remain the same. And most probably going to run just one time, and I'm going to see how this is being called just to understand how that's going to work. So we saw this, so when I go to the house 2.0, when I'm going to have a breakpoint. And the reason that I have a breakpoint, because I'm already asking here for this. He resolved it, is initially completed, you're going to get that instance, and I'm going to set up there. It's the data that I have there. So I didn't set up for my room. I have a default description in my furniture actually, that I just did the debug description because things that I want. I just made mandatory like one constructor, and we see here that everything is fully fine. But the most important thing that we can see here is I decouple my view controller. My view controller now, beside what we had before, that I knew about my stuff. I had some things inside there. I don't know anymore. Doesn't matter for me what do I have there. I don't need to know anymore. For me, my view controller, the responsibility, that was the single responsibility, was so important. I can only say, hey, show description, my room, furniture, that I want to know. This is the thing that I want to achieve. So in this way, this already started helping us. So later on, I mentioned that, hey, doesn't matter if it's small products or bigger products. This way you can grow up and grow up and grow up and make your code a little bit better. One of the things that we can do, that many things that we set up, we can say, you know what, I have parameters. And before, in the way that we had before, I need to get back to my view controller, add more parameters and so on. Here, actually, I don't need to change anything there because I'm just expecting to have like what? Just have like a fullify my dependencies. So what I'm going to do, I want to expect one argument. And the type, most probably going to be a new room. I'm going to show just one more thing. And I have the resolver. For now, I'm going to stay here, but beside I'm not going to use it. And for this, I'm going to expect that a string. Like, I don't know, bad. I'm going to call this bad. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to fullify again another dependency that I want, but now have some parameters sent yesterday. What I'm going to do, basically I'm going to just copy paste this guy here because it's the same object, and I'm going to say, you know, it's going to bad. It's the only thing that I'm fullifying right now. Just for sake of presentation, I'm going to comment this just for a second, and then I'm going to comment later. I'm going to show more things that we can do using this tool. But now what I need to do is say, hey, when I started looking for this, I'm looking for a registration that's expected to have a parameter. You're not going to find, because how do they know what I'm looking for? When I'm asking for that thing, I should ask and properly fullify that thing. So that we're gonna change too. So I'm gonna do this resolve. And here in the resolutions, we have more things that fullify that registration itself. And what I'm going to do, actually he already saw something for me, and it's you know what, you are expecting for a type, tell me the type, and which argument we want to fullify there. Okay, so let's try to do this in the room. This is the type that I'm looking for. And terrible the names. Okay, so what we did here, my view controller doesn't change. My main object that was their responsibility should not know anything, but I'm improving my dependencies. So if you think on a bigger project that we have so many things that is happening, you can start managing things outside, it's not inside. So we are decoupling way more our projects, make more scalable, it make easier. So just run this. Big bet. So this is exactly what I did. So he managed to pass, okay, so hey, I'm looking for this guy, this is the parameter that I have, you have a registration for this, so just fullify this for me. We start to see that now I'm decoupling things a little bit more, and I'm more secure to what I can do and what I can improve for this. This is just one of the things that when you are using this way, you're going to have this mindset, what you can achieve. The advantage for this tool, in a sense, that you can probably have more things. Remember that when I say that, you know what, it's very common and I have the same type. Of course, we could fullify these and make an improvement regarding using protocols that have one protocol, all the objects, but still, if I register in a protocol, it's the same type. Imagine that I have 10 types, so what I do, how do I know which type I should look for? They thought about this, and unfortunately it is not the best way that I would say, but I should give a name for everything that registered. Hey, put a name. So I can do this by doing this below here. It's a name. So what I gonna do, I'm gonna say, hey, this is room number 1 and room number 2. When I go in resolution, I can say, hey, I want to get the room number 1 and room number 2. And sometimes and unfortunately this is a string because the way that they manage to be more generic in a way that I can do anything. As a good practice, what I do in my project, I create like I still want to be a little bit more typed. So I would make some things like string describing and put the type there. So describe always a string. If I need to improve, I'm gonna do this way. But for now, I did like a new room. 1, resolve, I can resolve it this way for sure. And if I would resolve right now, I'm gonna do it like this. And now we're gonna change a little bit stuff. Say, you know what? Now I want to resolve, but in a different way. Pass a name. So you're gonna go there in that specification, you're gonna look for that specific registration. Besides, you have many registrations that's the same name, but you're gonna look specific for that registration. When you have things that are more or less in common, this is one of the ways that you can manage, okay, I have 10 items the same way, but I can manage saying like maybe arguments or something. Because of course we are doing the storyboard, it's a little less possible to put all the arguments because I cannot put in the instantiation. I'm not calling this, I'm not resolving this, but when it's about the object itself, I can do this. I can just go there and say, hey, I want this type, and just that, I say the name and just go through. This is one of the things that this tool is starting giving to us. Other things that it even started to get a little more important for us in this sense is when we are handed these tools, memory management is very important. One thing that's important to us to know here, like the project that I work, we have such a lot of classes. I don't know, maybe more than 100 classes. So imagine that you are registering everything in a container and have 100. So if you think about the memory itself, say, hey, you are registering 100 items in memory. Like this is not smart. Like you're going to start our app with 100 things inside your memory. The way that the registration is doing here by lazy registration. So actually what I'm doing, I just point to the memory, this type, only this. I'm not getting this type right now. Only when I resolve that I go to the resolution itself, that I'm going to go to my closure and say, okay, create the instance for this. But this is just one of the things that I have. Like for registration itself, it's important that we handle how we manage the object itself. This is one of the things that I should be able to do. And I'm able to do this. We have one thing that's called a scope. A scope is how I'm going to handle the instantiation, because imagine that I'm using like new room. When some next class, maybe the same view controller, I have many view controllers inside, it's a collection view, and I don't want every time that I call new room, it's the same object. Like maybe I expect it to be a new one, maybe I'm going to set, like I said, I can send as a parameter another thing to create a new room. I don't want it to be like the same object in memory. This is not what this tool does. For the default behavior is every time that I request something in my container is a new instance created. So every time that I'm going to come here and request, new object to be created and be created, every time that I resolve. But there's another that I say, you know what, I know what I'm doing, I want a singleton. It's possible. One of the possibilities, they call a container. If I do it this way, for now on, doesn't matter where I call, it will be always the same instance that I'm calling. So when we are handle this in our view controllers itself, we need to do some things there. I'm not doing this anymore. Like my dependencies, my objects, the way that I should handle is not being handled by my class itself. It's not that responsibility there. My responsibility now is kind of delegated. I change it to another place that I can increase it. This is just one of the things that I can do here. Another thing that I told in the beginning was related to my container. You imagine like, you know what, I have a container, but I don't want everyone being the same container. Why I'm doing this way? This is not mandatory. The way that they created the containers, I can have like small containers all over the place that can be all of the containers. I could come here and say, you know what, I have my private container, can be, and I go here, I'm going to create my private container. But I look maybe in my situation, I'm a child. I depend for someone. But everything that go inside here should be on in this scope, on in this container. But I want to see my parents. Maybe one thing that's normal that we have in our project is like the connection layer. I should be able to see this and not declare everywhere, like create for each flow that we have. So we have this possibility to have a parent container. And I can say, you know what, this is the parent container. The advantage of doing this way, that is, okay, I close a little bit more my scope. Everything that's inside this container is going to be visual possible to people inside this container. That's okay, that I'm going to need to change my registration to be like this. But I have a little bit more close scope. I not like open this for my whole project. So this is starting to get more advanced. But by some reason, I have the network layer, for instance, and it's resolved. He automatically going to resolve this because he's going to start looking for his container. So you know what? I don't see anything. Let's go to the parent because you declared that have a parent. You're going to look there, and if you find, you're going to resolve for you. So we start to decouple a little bit more and make it more scalable. This is just another thing that we can achieve with the tool. This is the basic setup that I put here in order to try to achieve this. So in order to, even to show what we are doing, like the biggest problem that we had, like the big projects, many things are happening inside there, like where I start to fix my problem. It's kind of difficult because you don't have like one central part that says, you know what, I know everything. If you start here, you go there. If you are there, you go to another place. I know everything. We don't have this anymore, unfortunately, this day, because people change. So the way that we choose in order to improve our code right now, you are creating small containers for all the flows. So imagine that we start to create like this is one house container, which is my house container, but I have like a special building. What I would make, I would create another class called special building container, put everything that's about that special building container inside that place, and so I start decoupling a little bit. At least in a visual way, when anyone new that come to my project and say, you know what, just look about my containers, you're going to see everything that I have as dependency. You don't need to go through the navigation, put breakpoints, and see like live what is happening. If you go to my containers, you know everything that I have to my project. And this is very important because you have a clear visual things to what I might need. Besides, when we go here to my view controller, you don't tell us that much, but everything that I depend of this is in another place, is another scenario. So this is one of the things that I can achieve with this. And of course, when we are doing this kind of stuff, so say, you know what, I'm having a nice architecture, good, I decouple a little bit my dependencies, I have a tool that manages this for me. It's not mandatory. If you see this is a concept, this is a pattern, you can do this by yourself. But the next thing that we would expect in a good code would be like testing. So does this bring some advantage for us? Yes, this does. Like it actually have other tools inside this that we can have. I created just a small test for this.
Okay, I have a question on the in-scope object. Can you once again describe the last one?
In-scope?
Yeah, when will you use the in-scope?
Scope is how you're gonna handle the memory management of your instance, like your object. If you do expect that when I call your object, he always the same or not. By default, he's not always the same. So every time that I call that object, that I'm looking for that object, a new instance will be created. So, but if I want the scope be different, I go there to my scope, that's basically a parameter, a variable, and say, hey, I want to be like a kind of a singleton. They call container, but it's a singleton. So every time that I call again, after that being declared, it will be like a singleton format, and not anymore like each time a new instance.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, that's good. So we go to the test. I just did a small test here in order to try to identify what we can do. And actually, they have one feature that actually you need to add one more thing into our project that's called Swinject auto registration. That helps a lot when I have big projects, I would say. Because one of the things where we are testing, we are unit testing, usually, just one scope, one thing, one class. Sometimes what we have, like the most thing that I can think about, like have a network layer and other dependencies inside. But actually, I don't even care about the dependencies. But I still need to fullify. I want to test my method, but I still need to fullify all my other dependencies because it's part of my construction, my architecture itself. So I have the registration the way that it is. I need to register because what I want to test is my view controller. I just want to make sure that my furniture is received and have the object that I'm expecting for. So I register and I come here, register and say my furniture should be like this. I have my house itself. I'm gonna declare here is a little bit different. Remember that time because it was a storyboard, I was attached to the storyboard and say, you know what? They resolve everything for me. But the thing that we have the registration. I'm gonna just remove for a bit. And when is this registration finished, that actually when I call this, when I resolve, he do the same as before. He create one instance. And he has one more method say, you know what? I finished create your instance. You can do something like this. It's a view controller. I should make sure that view controller is instantiated because I do the properties. After I set up my properties, they have one more help method called initCompleted. This is very helpful when I have like circular dependencies, like depending on the architecture that we are using. Like the VIP1, by the default that they do the implementation, you have like a circle dependency because you go to the interactor, after you go to the presenter gets back to the view controller. Imagine if I try to instantiate my view controller, fullify my dependencies, one of my dependencies is my presenter. My presenter is need what? My view controller. So I call my view controller again. So then I call my presenter again, and it starts having a loop. It's not what I want. What I want is create an instance, and when you complete, we fullify our dependency. So this is what I'm doing in a little bit different from what was before, because it was a helper. But this I'm doing this way. I just make sure that when finish, I'm gonna set up my dependency here. Now we go to the auto registration. What auto registration is doing? If you see, I say, hey, remember that in my house, I need a room, but actually I don't care about the room itself. I don't care about my furniture. That's what I'm testing here. I want to say, hey, your furniture is this one that you're setting, so everything is set up. I don't care about the room the way that it's set up. I don't need to care about initialization. I don't need to create actually even a mock. That would be the default behavior. I create a mocked object that fulfies some protocol or something like this. I can do this by easily. I say this type, the initializer is just this, the full initializer. What the tool gonna do behind the scene, it's gonna look for, hey, someone register. he knows that the default initializer I'm expecting a furniture. He's gonna manage, he's gonna get the type. I need this. I have some furniture. Yes, you have some furniture. You're gonna get your furniture, put there, done. So imagine that I have many situations that I would need to mock. That's the base scenarios that we do. We need to mock things and start creating many mocks. I don't need anymore. If I do know that the default behavior, I can start just, hey, fullify all my things that I don't care that much. He can handle this for you. So this actually reduces the amount of code that we use or need to do sometimes and make it easier for us. And that's what I did. So if I tested the room is created, just to see there, for the sake that, hey, does this room is being created? That was what I want to test. And basically it's the king size, it's fullified. There is no other place that I'm created this room itself. So this is another advantage that I can achieve having the tool like this. So I didn't tell him, I didn't create this object, but he's doing for me. So this is another thing that we can achieve. We can achieve this basically. I didn't create anything kind of new, but actually I just decouple things a little bit and make it possible to evolve even more. And for a sec, this is gonna get back here.
So is it like,
I have one question about if you go to the container, my house container, there is like in the register methods, I mean in the calls, in the lambda it gets a resolver as well. I assume with this resolver you can resolve dependencies of your dependencies, right? Because that's how I've used dependency injection, that makes it extra powerful, I think. Like if your furniture depends on a bed class, it can resolve it there as well.
Yes, like exactly like what you said. Like here, I didn't add it. I have the furniture, but I could make something like this. Now I have the private container register, but I don't expect it to have a name. I'm just gonna do it like this. For now, I don't want to receive a parameter, and I expect it to have this as a type. So I got just get here. Return. For now, this actually is not resolved that many depends, doesn't matter. But the thing that what I would change here done. Exactly like this. Resolve is pointed to your container out all the time. So you can just easily like this change and you not like attach it. Another thing that you can do, add more stuffs, just easy like this. Right. And you're gonna get back. So.
Yeah, I have the doubt on the when you were describing the testing part. So the auto register is like rebinding stuff so that you can pass the mock objects there.
Yes, I would say that like the mock object would be like a specific registration itself. What he's doing here, he's automatically managing. Hey, in somewhere in your registration, that in this scenario is my house, someone's gonna need a new room. But for me, new room is not the scope of my test. I don't care about the new room. What I want to test actually is the furniture from my new room. So what would be the real normal scenario? I create a mock because I don't care about that much and gonna fullify with a furniture. But I don't need to do this anymore. I don't need to create a mock. What I do, I just use this method that's called auto register. And I need to say, hey, this initialize expected. And the tool is gonna manage this automatically because when he look at, he gonna resolve behind the scene for the new room and say, you will not allow new room need a furniture. But furniture I register by myself and I did by myself the way that I want. My depends I set there. And it's gonna fullify this automatically for me. So I can have many objects that I don't care being auto-registered and auto-resolved without need to fullify everything that I have there. So just take a small look. Like I know that there's many things that go regarding this, but actually beside this, it's a big subject that we're gonna need to do. But that's what we try to achieve. This is one of the biggest benefits that I see when you're using Swinject itself. But I know that it has other tools in the market using Swift implementation itself. But this is one of the things that I can obtain without doing this by myself. Actually, in my project, we have a tool doing this by itself. But when we have a tool that's open source, that the community is helping and so on, sometimes it's easier because more people thought about more problems. That's why we have things like the containers is one of these. I can have many ways. Object scopes, like I said, handle the instance itself. The more memory management is important for me to have a control of this. I have naming registration. This gives a little bit of powerful if you want. Handle singular dependencies. That's why I show you the init completed, because I can handle this, like at the VIP, we have this kind of way. So this is the way that I handle. Register and resolve using arguments. I can have like many arguments that I want. So when I request something, you're gonna be fullified that way, and the support and maintain it. I guess for me, this, when we look at in a bigger project for some tool, this is one of the biggest things that we look. Hey, there's many people using this. How is the pull request? How the things are being doing? If everything is okay, so looks like it's a nice tool that we can use. Benefits that I achieved, like remember that the idea actually was not only Swinject or dependency injected, things are related, but the thing is, how did we handle our code? I have been working like a small project and big projects for big banks, and this make it easier to make our code more modern, because my code is pure Swift, or our class will control it. I don't have any other tool, but I have a proper way that I handle this. It's easier to maintain, because we saw that with a couple many things, I didn't have to change anything in my view controller or dependency or object, so it's easier. I reduced dependencies. That was one of the solid concepts. That's single responsibility. This helps. Single responsibility, the organization. Like I showed it for you, this is my way of organize. I created a class specific called container, and I put everything inside. You can do any way that you want, but I prefer to do this way because I have a clear view of my flow. It's easier for me to maintain this way. And testability, definitely, that's actually is the main thing when we are choosing anything in our project. It's testable. If not testable, sometimes you need to balance what's the problem that we are fixing, if it's going to be good. Yes, this was more about that we talk. There is a huge thing that's talking about. Most probably I'm going to send today. Actually, I create an article that's way more big, that I go way more deep and explain more stuff in details. But like the article is a little bit bigger, it's in the medium, so I'm gonna pass to the guys so they can put there. Go there, take a look, evaluate the tool itself. We have, I guess, more two tools in the GitHub that has nice stars that people are really helping. More or less they do the same. But this definitely helped me even the project, smaller projects, because I can increase and my code will be in a nice way. Bigger projects is helping me right now to decouple everything. It's easier step by step, and I can handle the code in a nice way, and my responsibility remains the same. That's it. Questions?
Nice speech, thank you. And I have a question. I used to use Swinject in my previous projects, as most of them is legacy one. And because of the legacy, Swinject was used very bad. And it was super hard to erase Swinject from this project. So my question is, isn't it easy to use just factories for it? Because like you almost that you shown can be replaced with just a factory with computer property and everything, and isn't it to use just factories? Because if you put a Swinject in your project, it's very hard to remove. Thank you.
Yeah, nice. That's a good question. The first one regarding when we added a new library to the project and how it's going to be easy to replace or remove and so on. That's basically why I choose to create another class that knows about Swinject itself, and that has even the import of Swinject and have the container inside there. If you see that my view controller itself, that can be like evaluated for anyone, I don't know anything about Swinject. So this is more or less the way that you handle your dependencies and how you architecture your project. And our project, what we are doing, basically everything that's like a part of the project, I would say, view controller, interactor, presenter, service, and so on, they should not know anything about Swinject. So I don't need to change anything in the future if I need to remove. This is one thing. The second thing is regard to the factor. Yes, actually, if you see there in the registration, they have like factor, and that I do. But when we are doing this by ourselves, we have many things that we evaluate. One of the things for our scenario itself is where I can ask someone about how do I do this. Like today in the Swinject itself, because it's very kind of old, I would say, we have many places that you can look for something and you find some information. This gives a little bit better knowledge for someone that's new. Sometimes because we have different levels of developers, from juniors to seniors. Seniors, for sure, they're going to do it by themselves, but sometimes juniors, it's more difficult to explain some patterns and the concept and so on. So when they can look in the internet, it helps. The third one that would help, like methods like from helpers for the storyboards. I don't have this for just doing by a factor implementation. In each complete, I would need to do this by myself. The arguments, because the tool do it in a generic way, if I want to do this by myself, is a little bit more complicated. It's possible, it's okay too. But you have other things like auto-registration and so on that actually give some help for us. Because actually in my project itself, my goal is not to maintain the tool. Actually, this should be the last thing that I should think or care about. My goal is like, for me, it's a bank, so I should care about the architecture, if my code is nice and so on. That's why simple decoupling and have this tool that could give me knowledge from the internet, it helped me a lot. That's basically why we choose to use this tool and not like do by yourself. Actually, the project today that I have has a tool by himself, more or less has this, but the lazy loading is not doing properly. The object scope, I don't have this there, so every time that I instantiate something, is in memory. I don't have a way to check, so I wouldn't need to tweaking this thing. My suggestion is decouple as much as I can, the way that I did, and you never have a dependency of the Swinject actually. I can just come later, you know what, I don't need Swinject anymore, I don't use everything that Swinject does, create my factor. You just go to the container, replace things there, and your class will remain the same. So we still remain your code the way that's supposed to be.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions? Nice. Thank you.
Short break.